Hey friends, welcome back to Acre Homestead. Today is going to be a busy day. We actually have had so much rain lately and I haven't been able to get out in the garden very much except to plant that garlic, and the garden is looking a disaster. It's so bad and it's time to put it to bed for the year. So what I'm going to do is I have about 5 hours of no rain and I'm actually going to be going out of town here pretty quick. I'm going to be heading to Salt Lake City. And I would like to try to get some of this garden put to bed before I do that, if at all possible. Another reason why I want to try to get this done before I go or get it started is the leaves are starting to, well, they have fallen. And I use my neighbor's leaves to help put my garden beds to bed. I don't want to leave out of town, come back, and then them have raked up all their leaves and put them in the yard debris because I want those leaves. So because I have a few hours of no rain, my goal is to try to get as many of my neighbor's leaves up as possible, and then we're going to see how many beds we can get put to bed. We're not going to be able to get the whole project, well, we'll see. Maybe we will be able to get the whole project done today, but it's just me. I called my dad to see if he was available, and he didn't answer, so it's just me. So I'm in my shop because we have this work truck, and last year when I raked up my neighbor's leaves, I used a wheelbarrow, and we're all on acre lots, and I had to do one wheelbarrow full, and it took me forever. So now that we have this work truck, I'm going to try to get as many leaves into this truck as possible, and then we'll put it into the garden bed from there. I want to show you what a mess it looks like right now. It's just wet and soggy. Things are rotting. The ground is exposed, which is causing a ton of weed growth. This really puts the garden in a vulnerable state. This here is my garlic bed, and this is what I want all the garden beds to look like when we're done. Mother Nature is going to cover herself one way or another. She is either going to cover herself with a ton of weeds, or I can cover her and have her prepped and ready to go for next year's garden. I do have some composted horse manure we're going to try to put on each one of these beds, and then a huge layer of leaves. And we're also going to clean up all the tomatoes. These are just tomatoes that are rotting. I'm going to pull out anything. There are still a few salvageable things, so whatever is salvageable, if there's some peppers or herbs or anything like that, I'm going to get that pulled out of the ground. We're going to get that preserved up so that nothing goes to waste. I mean, it's just soggy and wet. Let me show you. Things just aren't looking their best these days. And that's okay. That's part of gardening, is it goes through seasons, and this is the season we're in right now. I would like to try to pull up some of this grass here. I want to get all these corn stalks out of the way, and I want this to look a lot more neat and organized. I also need to get the chickens prepped and ready to go. It's been raining for like 2.5, 3 weeks. We've had one day that didn't rain, and that's when I got my garlic bed all prepped and ready to go. And so the poor chickens, I've been letting them free range. They're right here right now, but they've been in my front yard. They're free ranging 90% of the time, but when I go out of town, I can't let them free range. So I need to get their water fixed because one of the nipples is broken, and so it's leaking, so it doesn't hold water. And we just need to get stuff done around here. So it feels good to be outside. I have been working a lot inside because of the rain, and I'm just so ready to be out here, enjoy the day with you, and let's see how much we can get done. So my neighbor has a line of all these deciduous trees that produces all these leaves. And I did the same thing last year where I raked them all up and I put them on my beds. Some of them actually have blown away. So I'm not going to get quite as many as last year, but I have another neighbor that has a ton of trees, and I might stop by her house and ask her if I can have her leaves too. But we'll just see how far we get. So let's get all these leaves into the back of the truck. This is going a lot easier with this truck as opposed to using a wheelbarrow. I think I could probably get like 15 or 20 wheelbarrows in this truck. So this is going to be a lot more efficient for me this year. So that actually didn't take too long to get that entire thing full. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go prep quite a few of the beds and then come back and get more leaves, because I think that's actually what's going to take the longest, is getting the beds prepped and getting the manure on there. I really do want to get a layer of horse manure on each bed before I put the leaves on. I'm kind of running out of the horse manure, so we'll just get as much on there as we can. In the spring before I planted, almost all the beds except for 3 I put a layer of horse manure on, but 3 of them I didn't do that. So for sure I'm going to get those 3 layered with horse manure, and then we'll just go from there and see how much horse manure we have left. So let's go head back to our garden. So what I'm gonna do in each one of these beds is I've got some tools here, and I want to keep the roots of all these plants in the bed because that is organic material, and I want to continue to build up the organic material in these beds. So instead of pulling these up like this and composting it, I'm going to take my snippers and I'm going to snip right at ground level. We're going to leave that root intact in the ground. There happens to be a teeny baby jalapeno. We're going to take this inside. I've got to figure out something to do with that. And we're just going to lay this here like this. So I'm going to take all these plants that we have in here. This was my pepper bed and basil bed mostly. And we're just going to pull weeds. If there's weeds in here, I'm going to pull those up. I'm going to get a little pile going of weeds. And those will go in a different pile. Those should actually go in here. And I'm going to compost those. It smells really good when I'm clipping these basil plants. I have my root apron here. This is my new favorite thing. You guys sent me these. I'm going to link these down in the description box. I've got all sorts of different things in here. I have different types of clippers. I have extra set of gloves. I have my thing so I can turn my camera on and off. So if you guys want to check out one of these root aprons, I'm going to leave the link down in the description box. I absolutely love this thing.
So as I was doing this project, I was thinking to myself, this is so much work. This year's garden has been a tremendous amount of work, and it just is right now the culmination of all that work of getting this all pulled up, cleaned up, and put to bed. And is it really worth doing all this work for produce when I could go to the store and feasibly buy my produce for way, way cheaper than I can actually produce here on the property if you take into account the infrastructure that went into it, the time that went into it, and all those things.
One bed cleared. I did just pull up the cilantro and kind of lay it on top, and I'm going to let that compost in place. Now let's move on to another one. This is a lot of work. My girls found an area that's sunny, so they're sunbathing over here. I'm just going to continue to work on these two beds here while they relax here. These are my echinacea. I'm just chopping the leaves off here, and I'm going to compost these in place. I'm just going to lay them as chop and drop.
I know the quality is better what I'm growing than what I can buy at the store, but is it worth it? And I was thinking about all the things that I actually benefit from gardening more than just the food that I bring inside. Now, the food I bring inside is beautiful, delicious, and incredible. It's better than anything I can buy in the store. But I get more than just that out of gardening. I get time outside. I get to be in the sun. I get to be with my chickens. I get to get my hands dirty. I actually do struggle with anxiety, and one thing when I'm gardening is I tend not to be anxious. I tend not to have the feelings of the tightness of the chest and the anxiety when I'm out there because I have a bigger purpose. My purpose is to try to cultivate a beautiful area and to nurture something, and it's something bigger than me. And so that is one of the main reasons I have really been drawn to gardening, is just to feel like I have something bigger than myself that I'm working towards. And to see that come to fruition is pretty incredible. You build a lot of confidence when you put a seed in the ground and you watch it grow, and it just makes you feel pretty incredible. I also get a lot of exercise. You know, going to the gym is something I've been doing lately, but it's definitely not my favorite thing to do. I'm not one that enjoys going to the gym. I like getting exercise. I like the after effect, but working in the garden is a tremendous workout, and it's much more fun for me to spend time getting a workout in the garden than putting those hours in at the gym. So that's just some of my thoughts, thinking through, you know, is gardening worth it, and is all this worth it? And to me, it definitely is.
This is taking a little bit longer than I expected, so I am on some of them just pulling the whole thing out or trying to just break the stem just to kind of speed the process up a little bit. So in here I'm mostly just getting the weeds up. This was my winter squash and zucchini bed, and that just composts in place really well. The reason I'm pulling up all the tomato plants is tomato plants can carry diseases, and I really don't want to compost those in place because I don't want those diseases to get into my soil, into my beds. This is a lot of work. I'm getting tired. So I have 3.5 beds almost completely taken care of, meaning cleaned up. And what I want to do before I put the leaves on is I want to get the manure on there, but that's going to be a lot of work. I'm just going to keep going, pulling stuff up, and just keep trying to truck along and get a lot of this done. This is pretty tiring. I'm glad my chickens are out here to keep me company. Okay, that feels good to get that done. I feel like we've checked one thing off the list. Got a couple more corns here, but I'm getting a little bit hungry. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go run in and get some lunch. But I kind of wanted to get a project done because clearing the corn patch, that was on the list of things to do. So we can definitely check that off the list. Over here behind my gated chicken run, I am just creating a pile of compost. This is nothing special. This is just me putting it here. This is what I did last year. And within the year, it completely composted down. These are things like the tomatoes and the things that I don't actually want to compost in place because of the soil-borne diseases that can happen. So this is just where I'm putting stuff. It doesn't look the most aesthetically pleasing. Maybe one day I'll create a nice, built-in compost area. But for now, this is what we have and this is what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go run inside and get some lunch. I'm glad we got a couple things checked off the list. And then we're gonna come out and I think I'm going to, I think I'm gonna finish cleaning up the beds because I really wanna get some of those beds put to bed today. That's another big thing that's been weighing on me that I wanna get checked off the list. I'm feeling energized. I had some food. I was definitely getting a little bit burnt out and I think it was just because I was hungry. So let me show you what I did. I actually prepped another bed kind of, and I got that ready to go. And I'm gonna show you where we're at because I think what I'm gonna do next is start filling this wheelbarrow with horse manure, and I'm gonna start top dressing all of these beds with horse manure. So I showed this bed at the beginning of the video. This bed had my fall garden in it, which was pretty sad. And so I just pulled those broccoli up. I laid them down and let them compost in place. There was some cabbage in here, and I pulled the cabbage up. I kind of broke it up, and all I'm gonna do is lay the manure over top of this. I took some of the broccoli and put it over on these beds. And I basically, everything that I want out of the beds I've taken out. And I've kind of got my beds basically as prepped as I'm going to get them. That is just some nasturtiums that I'm going to let compost in place. Those are more of the echinacea leaves. And I'm not sure what to do with my parsley. This is parsley here and here. I'm probably going to end up just cutting it all and I'll harvest it and then I'll bring it inside and dehydrate it. This is where we're at. It definitely is looking really soggy and just kind of wet and sad, but hopefully by the time we get the leaves on and everything, it'll start to look a little bit more organized around here. And we got that area cleaned up quite a bit, so that is looking a lot better. You might be asking yourself, why am I doing all this work right now? Because I could just let these beds, I could let what's in them kind of compost in place and then deal with it in the spring. But my goal, one, is to get them covered like I said earlier. But two, the reason I want to get the manure on here is because last spring I actually put the manure on before I planted and it just made for a really busy spring. Honestly, I'm not sure which is better, if I should do that upfront work now in the fall or if I should do it in the spring. I kind of want to just get it done now because I feel like I'm already kind of like in go mode, like go, 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 go. And then as soon as this is done, I can just relax and settle into the holidays because my goal this year is really to try to enjoy the holidays and we're getting really close to that. So I'm just not sure. I'll let you know when it comes spring what I think is better because last year I did it in the spring and this year I'm doing it in the fall. So this is just kind of an experiment. That's the thing. I'm so new to this gardening thing. And honestly, I don't even know if what I'm doing is what I should be doing, but this is what I'm doing. So you're here hanging out with me along for the ride. If you guys have any suggestions when it comes to putting your beds to bed, I greatly appreciate that. But for now, this is what we're doing. And let's go get some compost. This is one of the beds that didn't get any of this composted horse manure last year. So I definitely want to get some of it on here, and it's super heavy because it's super wet. can just tell you right now, my energy level is probably, what I'm gonna shoot for is 1 wheelbarrow full of compost per bed, except for this bed because this one didn't get any last year. I decided to go in and pull all this parsley. I could harvest it and we could eat it, but I have so much parsley already. And I have another section of parsley over there that I'm gonna let over winter that I think I can get parsley from next year. And if it doesn't come back, I'll just plant it because I planted way too much parsley. This has some grass clippings in it too. So I'm gonna put those in here too. And that's really good for the soil as well. This is definitely a bigger project than I had anticipated. I've got these 3 beds done right here with the manure, and what I'm gonna do now, because I need to feel like I've accomplished something, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll finish, or I won't finish a specific task and I'll go do something else, but I feel like I can start checking things off the list. So if I can feel like I can actually put these 3 beds to bed by covering them with leaves, that's what I'm gonna do, so I can feel like I'm getting somewhere, because the wheelbarrow filled with that wet manure is extremely heavy, and if I just keep getting those wheelbarrows, I'm going to tucker myself out and I'm not going to be able to get as much done. So I need to take a little bit of break from the manure and move on to moving some of these leaves. Well, that feels great. We got 1 bed covered. I'm just gonna even out these leaves here, and then we'll move on to the next bed. So that's good to note that it takes about 1 smashed wheelbarrow full to cover 1 entire bed. The good thing is these leaves are wet, and so they're not gonna blow away, I don't think, very easily, because they kind of got some weight to them. That feels so good. Okay, let's move on to the next ones. Probably not the safest thing I'm doing right there. These girls are helping themselves to the broccoli leaves that I pulled out and kind of threw to compost in place. It's so cute. All right, update. We got the 3 beds covered with leaves, and now I went and grabbed 1 more wheelbarrow full of manure. I'm gonna do a light dressing on this one because this bed is a lot fuller. If you look close, you can see how much more soil is actually in this bed. That's because I put a good amount of this horse manure on here in the spring. So I'm gonna put half of this wheelbarrow on here and then half on the other bed next to me. I have enough leaves in the truck to cover this bed, but not to cover the next one. So we're gonna have to go to my neighbor's house and get some more leaves. This has a lot of grass clippings in this wheelbarrow full too. I feel really good now that we're starting to see some progress. We technically now have 4 beds completely done because my bed right behind me is my garlic bed. I planted that out last weekend, and so that one was put to bed when I planted the garlic. So we have 4 beds out of 16 beds done. We've done 5 beds now. So I gotta go get more leaves. I just came back with a packed, filled truck of leaves. I got it as full as possible, and I didn't close the back so that I could just stuff more into it. I also prepped 3 more beds with manure, and I've got these 3 beds that we can cover with leaves. Here, I didn't actually put the manure on this bed, but I pulled up all the plants, and I'm just going to do living compost, and we're going to put the leaves on top of those. It's starting to get a little bit dark out here, and I'm getting tired physically just by wheeling all those heavy wheelbarrows, so I'm going to do something that's a little bit easier. We did get these 2 beds completely put away and these 4 beds put away. I just went over there and took care of all the tomatoes and tomatillos. That was a lot easier physically, and so I decided to take a break and do that and get something accomplished. I have all my green tomatoes and tomatillos in here, and now I'm going to go take care of the tomatoes on here. All right, I'm just picking up the harvest. There was a few peppers and quite a few carrots actually that were in this bed. And I just kind of tossed everything right here. I'm just gonna put them in my root apron. All of these things need a very good scrubbing. This is definitely the dirtiest produce that's coming into the house. A couple things I stepped on, these peppers, I'm just gonna toss in the bed and I'm gonna let those compost in place. The carrots, I'm gonna take the tops off and I'm gonna take them inside. I stepped on most of the peppers, so you know what? We are just gonna let those compost in place, that's fine. I didn't think we were gonna harvest anything today, really, so that was actually quite a bit. I got this entire root apron filled with tomatillos and carrots and a few peppers. That was a lot of work. That was way more work than I was anticipating. We got so much done. We got the corn area taken care of. We got the 2 tomato trellises. I have 1 more tomato trellis I still need to get. We got 6 beds ready for spring. So they are completely cleaned out, manured, and they have their leaves on them. So they're ready to just tuck into bed for the rest of the winter. I still have 6 beds that I need to winterize, but I think I'm gonna call it a night because I haven't made dinner tonight and I don't have any freezer meals. So I need to go inside and make dinner, and it is getting dark. I have my truck filled probably 2/3 the way with leaves from my neighbor. I am not probably gonna have time to get to the rest of the putting the gardens to bed today or this weekend before I head out of town. So I'm gonna just park that truck in the shop and those leaves will stay nice and dry and they'll actually be easier for me to move later on. At first I was a little bummed thinking we didn't get that much done, but then as I sit here and I look around, I'm actually amazed with all the work we got done. It was a lot of work, and I think honestly the reason why it felt like so much work, so much physical labor, is because everything is wet and heavy, and so things are just heavier than they are when they're dry, and so that was a big push to get that done. I'm grateful for the harvest we got today. I still actually have some things in the garden that I'm doing some experiments with. We've got some carrots in the ground that I'm going to try to winterize. I'm just going to keep them in the ground and see how they do. I have some cabbages. I have just a couple other things that I can harvest later on. And I'm just excited for what we got done this year. 2021 garden was a success. I definitely was able to learn some things from 2020's garden to implement into 2021's, and that definitely increased the yield. There were a couple things that weren't actually as good of a yield as 2020's garden, but you know what? Overall, huge success. I'm grateful for all that we got done. My chickens are actually going to bed. There's only 2 that are still up, so that means it's time for me to go inside and make some dinner. I want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me in my garden today. I greatly appreciate that you spend time with me in here, and I just love it, and we get to do a lot of fun things together, so thank you so much. If you're new to my channel and you want to see what else I've got going on around here, some videos will pop up here. You can go watch those or consider subscribing and see what else we've got going on around here. We do a lot of fun things. We do a lot of gardening and cooking and just things around the home. We like to cook things from scratch around here, and we just have fun hanging out together. So if that interests you, please consider hanging around here. And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.